away? What did his body need that was revealed to you in that time between not having it go away and then it did? Otherwise, you don't own the solution, and you want to own the solution.
I do. And that's why I said I'm testing. But our last session, I decided to take it back to, was I seeing his sacrum become plumbed in a standing position? Could I identify that? And and so that's kind of where I went, and we did some things with that, but I'm gonna shut
Okay.
up now.
No, I would get clearer on what was needed in his body that caused the pain that you added. Don't just like again, we're not going to hop skip over. All right, let me welcome everybody who's joining us live. We're clearly in hot pursuit. We're doing client case studies and working through. We just wrapped up a session with our club practitioners here. We're digging into real world work with the clients and bodies that they're working on, and we're solving those problems. We're focused heavily on clinical reasoning, not on to doing. So we're going to shift today now and take these ideas so that all of us can apply them. So you also listening here live, I can see some of you are here live. Hello. You can take these into your own clinical environment as well. I love Tuesdays. I love talking shop with all of you. If you are here new for the first time, I want to welcome you. I'm your host, Gina Schatz. I've been in our industry for 34 years now as a clinical veteran, working through field issues as you all are, and I'm here to drive you to success, which is what we're doing. You are now part of a high striving community of practitioners who are committed to being excellent in solving musculoskeletal pain and dysfunction. We're not skimming over it anymore. So I'm so glad that you're here for the first time. I'm also really glad if you're here for the 100th time. I can see some of you here live on YouTube are watching. Hello, hello, hello. Last week's training on Tuesday got me thinking about what kept coming up in the pre-live conversation, and it was what to leave out of your session, right? What to leave out is just as valuable as knowing what to leave in. So you want to hear everything, you want to take all the information from your clients for sure, but knowing what to leave out is a game changer. It saves you time, it saves you efficiency, it creates clarity. When you're clear, you're confident. So not only what to leave out, but why you leave it out is the reasoning skill. And when you know why you're leaving it out, then you have a handle. I like to say you own that information. This is applicable, this is not applicable. So we're going to walk through today while we're live here, how to reason through some of that. And let me start at what seems like it could be the beginning, and that is that you want to do a thorough intake. You absolutely want to do a thorough intake. And I share this on our Monday night labs that one of the places that practitioners hold them into a beginner level status when you're not beginner level and you don't need to be held there is we go too fast into action, and some of that's just by design, right? Like if you're a manual practitioner, you're taught that the session starts when they're on the table and you're actually using your hands. And if you're a movement practitioner, you're taught I got to get so much in, warm up, stretch, cool down, etc. Same amount on the right as the left. And so we jump into action too quickly. But if you're solving musculoskeletal pain, the gold is in that intake. Your client is going to tell you what the plan is. They're not going to say, do this, do that, and do that. Neither am I, by the way. But they're going to give you all the intel so you'll know exactly what's causing what they're presenting with. Without that intake, you've left out information that I wouldn't ask you to leave out. Like that, it doesn't work. You cannot guess your way through a plan. And I know a lot of us do, and then we wonder why we're struggling. So don't fear the data. Just listen to it, take it in so that you can craft a plan. And then what I'm talking about in today's conversation is in all of that data that is shared with you, what's relevant and what's not relevant to the plan. It's all relevant to the client, by the way, or they wouldn't be talking. So you don't want to interrupt people and take gestures and things. When you're skilled at doing an effective intake, You'll listen for all the information that's being shared, and you'll start connecting the implications of that information. If you just listen and then like wait till they stop talking, this isn't common communication. It's not like you're at lunch and you're going to wait for them to stop talking and then you're going to start talking, which is also not effective communication, by the way. We don't listen so that we can talk. You listen so you can comprehend in effective communication. The same thing goes in an intake. You listen so you can comprehend. How you know you're comprehending what's being shared is by knowing the implications of what's being stated. Implications. I still get questions on what do you mean by implications? With respect, use the word as it's defined. Implications means what it could mean if this is present, what it could mean if this is absent, what it could mean if this is connected, what it could mean if it's disconnected. So, implications means when your client is sharing information, intel about their body, it's relative to the chief complaint, number one. Okay. So if it's not relative to the chief complaint and they're just telling you what they did over the weekend, don't start making up a story like, well, Gina said that everything that they said should be important. So they went to a football game over the weekend. That must mean something. Like, no, relative to the chief complaint. Okay. Implications are from a musculoskeletal perspective. What is the biomechanical implication? What does this mean by how they move and parts related to each other? What is the structural implication? What's happening to the bones and the alignment that you can't see with your eyes? The bones and how they're orienting to themselves under the skin. What's the structural implication? What's the functional implication? Are they able to do the joint actions or not? When you can discern and prioritize implications, everything that they're saying is like gold from heaven. When you're not able to connect implications to what they're sharing, all it sounds like is either Charlie Brown, wah, 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 or it starts feeling like it's a pile drive and you're like, I don't know what to do with all this information. I don't know what to do with all this information. If that's where you're at, that's no problem because that just means you need more knowledge and more training on implications. What I encourage you to say to yourself in those moments is, I'm going to write all this down and capture it, and I'm going to take myself to training task on what this is. It's one of the things we do in the club. Bring me your questions. Let's workshop it out so you can get constant daily connection and training on how to do that. But if instead it sounds like Charlie Brown or you're pile drived and you start telling yourself a story about you're overwhelmed and you don't understand, all you're going to hear is your own voice. And then you're going to convince yourself that you don't know and you don't understand. And now you're out of the game, even if the client does give you all the intel. So you must manage your mind and what you're thinking while you're taking in information. That's a non-tangible skill, guys, but it is so real. And it's why we do leadership and we do mind management in our training because you want to have metacognition to be able to take in information and set yourself and your ego aside while that information is coming in. That's higher level listening and comprehension. Okay. So that's one of the places that I recognize was different between just folks who are steeped in technique data and notebook knowledge versus applying that in real time while their client is sharing. It's all fine and good when you're in training with me, and Debbie, you just said it while we were talking before we went live. They're totally different when you're not there setting up scenarios for me, Gina. Exactly. So we need to be able to take our mind with us and manage that in the moment. And that takes practice, but it's worth it. If you're familiar with note taking or technique training, you'll just do more of that because that's what you're familiar with. And you'll never get this piece because it doesn't come with more techniques. It just doesn't. Next thing you want to do with the information that comes in is discern priority patterns, meaning you must be able to identify and see implications of compensatory, recruitment, and anti-algic patterns. You've got to be able to do that. One of the client images that I share on our Monday Night Lab is clearly something going on with this chap's shoulder and neck. And he is a very fit, looks very healthy individual. And every single practitioner that came to that lab said there's something going on in the shoulders, hypertonicity, it's this muscle, it's that muscle. I would do this technique, that, da, 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 but that was an anti-algic response, which means any of those approaches would have rendered him much more in pain and likely caused him to not be able to heal because his rotator cuff was injured. Now, I don't want to give it away in case you come to the lab on Monday, but you got to know what patterns are being prioritized in someone's body and what they mean, the implications, what they mean. And then you start filtering out and listening for details that are relative to their chief complaint. When you have details that are relative to their chief complaint and you're sure that you have relative details relative to their chief complaint, then you start asking yourself, it's like you're hot seating yourself in that moment. You're quizzing yourself. Does this fit? Does this data point that this person just spoke of, does it fit the chief complaint scenario? In any imaginable way, could this cause that? Could that lead to that? Your answer must be definitive. Yes, and here's why. Or no, and here's why. Your why question is the strongest question you can keep asking and answering. Why? I think it's developmental age between 3 and 4. Clearly, I'm not grown up yet because I am a why girl. But why? 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 You want to be a why. Does this fit? Yes or no? We just had another experience of that before we came live here today. I asked very clearly, why would you guys do X, Y, and Z? Well, I thought it would A, B, and C. Okay, but that's not definitive. Let's pause and workshop out. Does this thing you were going to do that thing you wanted? No. Okay, pause. And I cut you off, right? Pause, stop. Whoop. The answer is no. The answer is no. When we don't have the answer, what our brain will do on autopilot is start filling in other possibilities. If your answer is clearly no, it's no. Move on. Move on. And that's one of the places where we get to really grow in our quest to clinically reason. And here's why. If you refuse to pause there or just in habit of pause, I'm not saying refusing like you're against reasoning, but if you're in the habit of not pausing after you're clear it's a no, what you're doing is practicing the habit of what I call leapfrogging. You're like hop skipping over and you're missing the moment that is required to generate reasoning. You're missing the moment. No, but. It's the answer still no. You just busied yourself, right? Your brain is going to want to fill in because your brain wants to solve the problem. You're in the right place if you want to solve this problem. This is not a character assassination. This is how the mind works. Clinical reasoning is a mind activity. It's not a technique drill. It's a mind activity. You get to know the physiology. Your brain's going to do that. It's going to auto, and you're going to be like, I had a clear no. Must pause, redirect, even if it's only 1 degree to the left, and then go look down that path. But don't keep knocking on a closed door and hoping that it's going to open. The answer is no, this doesn't apply here. Find something that does. Because if you stay on the closed door knowing it's a no, even when the door opens, you won't solve the problem. You just spent your time trying. But that's not what's needed. So why are we over here still trying this when you already answered for yourself? That won't create that. I don't need this approach. Just pause. That pause is a pregnant pause. I call it the pressure. When we don't want to sit in that discomfort of not having the answer, we are adverse to the pressure that is required to get through clinical reasoning in a productive way. It does feel like pressure when your brain can't just auto solve. Absolutely. It's part of the physiology. That gets to be a place of like quested desire. And I might sound like I'm overstating it, but I mean it sincerely. You want to be in a place where when your clear no is a no, and then you sit in that moment of discomfort that you start relishing it. I am no longer cheating myself out of the answer. I am no longer rapid fire taking action that's going to hold me at a beginner level. I am powerful and sitting in this discomfort, and I will stay here until I use my brain to solve it because my brain is going to solve it. That's what that moment feels like. And you've got to look for it and want it and notice how busy instead we make ourselves. When you make your brain really busy, you feel productive, but your outcome tells you you're not productive and then you lose your confidence. So it's this pressure cooker that you want to look for, not just for the sake of being in pressure, but after you recognize this clearly is a yes, and now I need to know why, implications, or this clearly is a no, and now I need to come up with an alternative, and I don't have one at the moment. Okay, that feeling of pressure. So, does this data point fit the chief complaint? And if so, how? Why do you say that it's connected? Why do you say that it's not connected? That's helping you reason through biomechanical, structural, and functional implications. And then you come up with an alternative. Okay, so it goes both ways. You can also overlook meaningful information, and we're not going to dive into that today. I'll save it for a different training so that they don't blur together. But I do want to add, we can overlook obvious information, obvious to me, and we hop skip over, which I've mentioned a few times today. How you know if you're skipping over obvious information is, did you get a clear yes or no? If you didn't get a clear yes or no and you're on to the next idea, you skipped. And all of that happens very subconsciously and it happens very fast. So you want to have some pattern interrupt for yourself on being able to sift out and know that you answered yourself. Yes or no, yes or no, and then why. Okay. Would it help you guys to have some examples of leaving things out? Or do you guys have any questions yet? Debbie, Gary, any more questions come up? No? Debbie, it looks like you're looking for me. Yeah, okay. I thought the mute button was coming off. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we're live now, and so this is a little more daunting.
No, come on. You got this. You're in good company.
So the runner,
Yeah.
he's in my testing program, so I get to practice my patterns, my functional assists, all those. But his chief complaint, because I do want to practice my intake, so I am asking that, um, was the calf. And then in our training, Creasy offered some, how to follow that line from the calf where I might come up with the whys. But listening to the Sacred Sacrum course, I realized, if you see someone's sacrum does not look balanced and you're hearing their chief complaint and you want to do that, but you see a sacrum issue, would you go there too and be listening to the chief complaint and go there as well?
Okay, great question. So first off, when you said that Tracy, who's in your pod, Tracy outlined the musculature, that's a functional approach. The sacrum is a structural approach. Okay, so I said you got to
Yep.
know the implications of both. It can't just be one or the other. Bones and muscles need each other. So you get to siphon through which one's the chicken, which one's the egg, or are they both part of the story? And then you said, if I see that their sacrum looks off, I'm just in the interest of clarity here. I'm not guessing on people's sacrums. I'm actually assessing them orthopedically, and you know how to do that. So if you're saying that you did the measurement and you assessed that he did indeed have a sacral measurement, did you do that?
Good. My
Okay.
visual assessment was to his tail feathers being tucked, not his
Okay.
sacrum. So
So that's a pattern, but his
correct.
Sacral measurements are an orthopedic assessment. So now you're doing visual, functional, structural, and orthopedic assessments. Great job. Now, what you do with that is what we just talked about here. What do those all mean? What's the implication of them? Does the functional train that you listed muscularly have anything to do with his pattern of pelvic posture? Does the structural discrepancy in his sacrum have anything to do with any of those muscles you traced all the way back down to his foot? These are rhetorical questions in this moment, but I'm illustrating for you. What do you do with all that information? It's not all random. There's a story that's being told by the body to you, and your expertise is to put the storyline together so that it makes sense and then rewrite it so that it's clear out of the body, right? Clear, like cleared. They don't have the pain anymore. So in your intake, you said you were listening. What part of what he said connected to what you also assessed? And it's a rhetorical question unless you want to dive into it. There's a, what's coming up for me right now is there's a time where all of the information matters and it's all connected. And there's a time where you get to look at all of the data points independently. So you get to do all of the assessments and a thorough intake first. Those all should have a weave of connection in them. And then you decide which one is required for you to work on first. What to leave out would be something like he's been having a hard time sleeping. If his hard time sleeping did not include less than 4.5 hours of uninterrupted sleep, then it's not tied to his pain. But interrupted sleep, that means you're not sleeping for 4.5 hours, could be. Could be. So then I would need to qualify that again. How long has your sleep been interrupted? The last 2 weeks. How long have you had Achilles pain? 6 months. Okay, not related. Right? Like a clear yes, a clear no. So what to leave out is our focus for today, and that might mean stories that you're also filling in, which is what I talked about earlier with the clear yes and the clear no. When we were backstage and you said, "Well, I assume XYZ." Stop, right? You filled in. You leave that out. Leave in things that aren't clarified by you and leave out things from your client that aren't related to the chief complaint or what sourced it.
Okay.
Everything else is a practice in organization.
And all three of those need to be in the organization. So what I did with him last time was I defaulted to what I'm most comfortable with. I'll show the picture in the group, and I went after the pattern.
Okay. I love your honesty, Debbie, because that's how you get excellent. When we admit that we default to what's comfortable for us and we also stretch for more intel, you can become excellent. We call it camouflaging when you don't do that. I'm going to hide that I just did what I was good at, and I'm going to sound like I have all the answers. Those kinds of practitioners are, I worry for them because they're fooling themselves and they're going to burn out that way. You're not doing that right now. So I really want to acknowledge you for that. That's a brave act to say, I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. And you know what? I caught myself in a habit that's not working for me. And look, you're going to break it. You're absolutely going to break it because you just brought it up. Like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to let myself default like that. Well done. I'm proud of you. Okay.
Patterns do bring so much joy. I have to go for a lap. They do. They
I
do.
know. I'm glad they do. Well, the measurements will as well, and so will the functional assist. They're just newer for you now, right? So
Yes. And
yeah.
and the functional assists are amazing. Amazing. But
Yes,
yeah, amazing. Now I want all three of them together. I want that stretch.
it's
I do.
coming. It's coming. Debbie, you're halfway through the program. It's literally coming all together. We're
Yeah.
we're collating as we speak.
Yes. That's
You got
good.
it.
Okay,
Yay.
I'll see you in lab. I
All
must
right.
report to lab.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, yes, everybody. So we do have our shots method practitioners do have a lab today. So I will be ending our live stream just a few minutes earlier because so I can switch channels here. You're welcome, Debbie. And the and as you heard Debbie say, the functional assists are amazing and they're fun and loaded and powerful. And um, she's only halfway through the program. So the shots method program is I wasn't going to plug it today, but it's being brought up. It's a year-long program. We do all of what I already mentioned. We do intakes, we do structural assessments, we do biomechanical functional assessments, we do all of our foundational anatomy, we work with clients, we build our businesses. You get to make up your tuition even before you start the program. There's a pathway for you to make that happen. I can't make promises, obviously, on any of your success. You get to create the success for yourself, but the program is set up, as you heard Debbie say, she doesn't need anything else. That was my intention. I wanted a one-stop shop. I like to be efficient. I want to get it done. I want to get the answers. I want to get the solutions, and I want to move on and feel really good about that. And that's how we put the curriculum together for that program. So it is an intensive program, but you get everything you need, and then you're done for the year. All right, so before we wrap up here, anybody here in the chat, I see you are all still here, and I'm so glad. If you guys have any questions just before we wrap up, I'll be here for another couple minutes. Please do leave them in the chat. I'm happy to answer your client questions for you. Gary, what about you? Do you have any client questions that are remaining in our last few minutes? You're muted.
I don't think so. I think this is a
Okay.
very illuminating session. It's really taking apart how we reason and how we think,
Hmm.
and what the rabbit holes are. And
Mm.
you are just so good at diagnosing that. I can use the term diagnose. So thank you.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
welcome, Gary. I love it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the work that we do. So I'm happy that's supporting you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. So if there are no other questions, and also Gary, please do on the client question that you had earlier, please post that in the club so we can all follow through to the end on that one with you as you explore some more.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
okay.
So,
Hmm.
yep. Our club is our professional practitioner community where we do clinical work, and it's a complete environment for practitioners who are doing postgraduate work, meaning you don't have to be in the shots method community or well, you are in the community. You don't have to be a shots method practitioner to participate. We open up that community to all practitioners who are high striving, and I'm in there mentoring our path to success every day of the week. So please do, Gary, post that in there so we can all learn and grow together and we can get you your solution fast. Okay. All right, everybody. It's been a pleasure. There are no questions in the chat. It's been a pleasure workshopping with you today. I look forward to our next live next week. I'm going to sign off here just a few minutes early so I can get prepared for our clinicians lab. We have guests coming in. They're workshopping on clients in their spaces, and we're all it's like having a party on a training day. It's kind of fun. So I'm going to beg off a couple minutes early, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye for now.